Hello everyone, and welcome to the CTF Committee Q&A. We're going to be taking questions from you guys, as well as covering questions we got on the forums throughout the week. Going to be covering a wide variety of topics. Yeah. Is there anything you guys want to say before you get started?
Hello, I'm Miskey. I'm also on the CTF Committee. I do things occasionally. Usually don't, though.
Okay.
And just anyone else here, I think everyone else here should just introduce themselves so we sort of have a fluid thing going with the conversation.
Alright, I'm Kev. I do some stuff here and there. Yeah, that's it.
I'm Miskey.
I'm
I also
Zombie
do
Cat.
stuff.
I'm Zombie Cat. I play mage. That's about it.
Alright.
I'm Wintergreen 3 and I just do stuff too.
Yeah, so we all do stuff. It's a very,
Very
complex system we
competent.
got here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone have the doc open?
Yeah.
Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go off of the questions we got on the forums first, and then we'll be opening it up to Twitch chat after and take some questions from there if we do have time at the end. So, we've kind of organized everything into different little areas that we want to cover first. And the first of that is going to be ELF and the surrounding class changes that are supposed to come out with it relatively soon. So,
Right,
just gonna-
so starting things off, the first question that we have here is, quote, I've heard mixed goals and thoughts about the upcoming ELF update. What is the expected outcome with the update, in parentheses? ELF's power level compared to other classes, offense versus defense, etc., close parentheses. And the question is from Cardona. So, anyone want to open with thoughts on that?
well, personally, I see New Elf being strong in quite a few roles. But personally, I see it as an offensive and defensive support role, mostly. I think it could be seen as a captain class, but I think we're going to see more use of it for supporting flag carriers and maybe buffing up defense, stuff like that. And as far as power level, I think we kind of want it to be pretty strong when it comes out, and then maybe, tweak it with some small nerfs afterwards if we need to.
Yeah, we're actually definitely going for a class that's meant to be a little overpowered on release, which should be a change from the way we've been doing things in the past. Reason for that is essentially it's a lot easier to tweak down a class's power level as opposed to create something that's overbalanced at the start and then try to make it stronger. As for the roles, I'd say we weren't really trying to change Elf's role too much. What we were doing was mainly making it stronger as sort of a midfielding support role, and making it stronger for capping as well.
Yeah. Zombie Kev winner, any input on Elf? Your thoughts on what we want it to be?
No, not really. I think that pretty much covers it for me.
Oh,
Yes, I
sorry,
mean-
I wasn't. I was on the phone. Sorry.
All good. We're just discussing Elf and where we want it to be after the rework and what intended roles we want it to fill. So are there any things you have to say about that?
I'd say we just make it a little overpowered. So then when we release it, people go, "Oh my god, it's overpowered," and we just tone it down a bit instead of doing what we've always done.
Yeah, Boston mentioned how it's a lot easier to tone down a class rather than having to
Yeah, I
buff it
think
up.
so.
Yeah, it's a
That's
lot.
probably
It's a
the big
lot
difference.
easier to nerf a class that we add or fix than buff it.
Well, yeah, and the nice thing about this rework as well is we're adding in a whole bunch of new abilities that haven't really been seen on CTF or even like Minecraft, really. Some of them so far. So instead of having to add those abilities in after when we're buffing a class, it's a lot easier to just add them in with the rework, and then just slightly nerf like the values or the numbers or take away a stake or something, afterwards. So I think that pretty much covers that question.
And then the next thing we had was what progress there was on the Elf rework and if we had some footage of how it works now. Progress on the Elf rework has been intermittent.
Well,
Yeah.
Chicken was working on it for a bit. I'm not sure how far he's actually gotten with that now, because he's being pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah.
I remember
so-
we did get some testing done with the Vortex, but that was it.
If you
Don't
saw the
really-
version that was accidentally live on the servers for a little bit, that version is about as far along as we've seen it. The reason why that's been held up a little bit is because the mechanics on how that works are a little different from what we initially intended, and Putty is trying to figure out how to code it to our specs, and because he was having issues with it, he decided to take a break. So he'll be back on it before too long, and hopefully we'll get the elf rework out before too long as well.
Yeah, something to note about that change that did go live with the wind spell and whatnot is Putty wanted me to mention on that day, and probably at some point here, that how strong the class was at that moment. Those numbers that were in there, and like the range on the wind and everything, that was just used to test if it was, like, the general concept was working. Those aren't the actual numbers that it's going to have, like, when it goes live. It won't be as strong as it was on that day, obviously. But that was just to fix, like, functionality.
And you shouldn't
stuff.
be able to pull yourself and teammates. That was also
Yeah.
just a
Yeah,
thing
that
was
was pretty
clarified in
bad.
the code. But
Oh, that being said, you guys got a little bit of a teaser in game, I guess, for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do expect to start working on that again sometime soon. The thing I think we should focus on a lot now, though, is some of these smaller class changes that are supposed to come out with it, because some of them are really simple. And which kind of leads into our next question, actually, about, or, well, this is 2 questions, Will, I think, about, oh, no, it's right here, yeah. So that kind of leads into our next question, which is, from both Camkeen and Unifier, they had very similar questions here. Unifier asks, if you'd be forced to buff Chemist and Pyro, how would you? And Camkeen asks, any plans for Pyro buffs? Well, Chemist and Pyro both have plan changes in the E.M.P update that's supposed to come out alongside or slightly before the Elf changes, so any comments on those changes?
I just think Pyro needs a bit of an armor buff.
Yes.
So the
Yeah,
iron
it
chest
honestly-
plate added in is going to definitely help.
Yeah, it honestly just dies too quickly. It can't really do what it's intended to do at this point.
So, I actually did some testing 2 to 3 days ago on the match server with Orange, testing how much damage reduction the iron chest plate actually is. And the iron chest plate is actually a massive difference. It's 2 more hits from a ninja, so it's 4 hits from a ninja to actually kill. So I think something like an iron, or chain rather, or gold chest plate would be ideal here. But the gist of the Pyro change that's on the thread is that we want to buff its chest plate, or, just armor in general, so that it takes less hits initially to die, but we're going to reduce its stake. So we want to keep its overall tankiness somewhere around the same, but we just want to prevent it dying to ninjas and heavies as quickly as it does currently. Yeah, so that's Pyro. And I think we've generally agreed that that's a good idea, or an idea we all support for that. Chemist. Who wants to cover the Chemist changes we have proposed on the thread? They're pretty interesting.
Right, yeah. I guess I'll take Chemist. Because we were discussing changes to Chemist's pot, the one that was currently weakness. Basically along the lines of it's really underused now by chemists. It sees very little usage, so we wanted to do something fun with that slot, something that would get used and give chemists more options. So I think after a bit more discussion, after we put out the thread and so on, we've more or less settled on the jump boost as what we're going to be doing with that slot. The exact amount of time that we're going to have the jump boost be active for is, I guess I'd say, uncertain. We don't know if we want to give you chemist 2 jumps or 3 jumps or something to that effect. Probably not 1 jump, just on the basis that, if you miss it, you would have to repot and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot you can do with that. Because
I did actually do a little bit of testing with that.
It is a bit map dependent, but you do have a few spots that are 2-block or 3-block high walls. I know it isn't in rotation now, but the one that comes to mind, for example, is Metro, where you have that wall that's too high, separating the tracks and the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is with it is we just want to. It's another mobility option, although, albeit a small one. But it's also a risk and reward. You can use it to get over stuff, but you gotta use it well. Because if you use that jump boost and go up in the air, it's gonna be very hard for you to land your next health bot. So if you do it when there's like a ninja on you or something, it could be pretty bad. But it should just add, a little bit more fun to Chemist. There's also the change, I believe, to the fire res potions on the thread, if I'm correct.
Yep, increasing that from 25 seconds to a minute.
Yeah. So when the initial change was made to bring fire res down from the same duration as buffs, the philosophy behind it was something along the lines of, well, we want chemists to play a bit closer to the rest of the team, and you don't want them to just be able to absentmindedly buff someone and forget. With that said, that didn't really do much to create incentives for teamwork between chemist and everyone else. I wasn't a huge fan of the idea at the time, and we're changing it part of the way back, essentially because the 25-second fire res has been more or less ineffective.
Yeah. The thing with 1 minute as well is, if you buff at spawn and then swap, right, that'll give you enough to get into the Fire and out, still with that fire res. But later on, like, while you're crossing the map, it's likely going to run out, which means Pyro, later on recovery will still be viable and stuff. So it's not going to be, a massive buff, but, it's going to be a little quality of life change for just cappers in general and stuff. Especially with us giving, Pyro the armor buff, right? I think it's a good balance change to put out at the same time, since we're going to be seeing Pyro become a little bit more effective as well.
And then the other things we haven't touched in terms of the E.M.P update itself are medic and just what are essentially bug fixes to mage.
Yeah. I can cover the mage ones real quick. So the mage ones are fairly simple, and these are ones. One was a mechanic that used to be in the game that was removed, and the other is just straight up bug. So the first one, if a assassin activates their assassin at the moment and mage shoots them with a damage spell, they won't die. Now that's completely not intended. We don't know exactly what happens, but we're looking into it, and we're just trying to get that fixed. And then if you guys remember, upon the release of mage, if an assassin would activate their assassinate and get hit by any part of the lightning spell, like any of the damage, they die from it. Currently on live, it's only the egg, but we are looking to revert it back to the entire lightning spell. And that's just to make mage have more, I guess, reliable gameplay, because there are a lot of small bugs with it, and even stuff like interactions with Elf Shield come to mind when you think of that, which is another thing we're looking to fix in this rework. So we're just trying to make gameplay more smooth and stuff by fixing these small bugs on mage.
Yeah, medic we're looking for an kind of a new combat heal system, sort of, between medics. So that combat tag of 5 seconds, trying to chop down on that medic teaming. We're also looking at I know it's been brought up a lot, the medic glitch where you see the health at 0 or you don't really know if the player is full items, etc. So we're looking at a new kind of visual aid to help medics really know what they're looking at, whether the person is full health or full items.
Yeah, so the 0% glitch, according to Nam, is actually a vanilla glitch. So that one's going to be hard to fix, but we want to add some other kind of indicator, as Kev said, to show items. So you'll still get an idea of whether or not a player needs to be healed. And we're looking at a red or green dot, basically, right, to display whether or not they're full items.
Yep.
Yeah, and we may do tweaks depending on, well, do we want to show the green dot if, say, it's an archer and they're full stake and they're just missing one arrow?
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at individual cases like that, but for the most part,
or
the
like
green
ninja
dot
down a flash bomb.
If someone is full health and full items.
Yeah. And I think the thing we should really focus on is forms of healing. So if a class is full stake or full, pots for chemist. Stuff like flashbangs, invis, archer arrows, stuff like that is a little bit less minor. But
I do think invis is pretty major.
Well, invis is major, but what I'm saying is I guess the biggest thing for medics, especially on support for newer players, is knowing when a class has their stake back, or for chemists having their pots back. Because it's something they often forget, and you're left with full health and no stake on some of these classes that aren't as mobile, and normally doesn't end up going too well.
And on the other hand, it does make it a lot easier for a medic to support someone during a fight, because if they don't want to get the full health, have their health fully restored and items fully restored, and then have that 15-second cooldown where they can't be healed, the medic can essentially just stay out of the range where they see the green dot on the player. So that should hopefully be a plus for team fights as well.
Yeah, and just to touch on the medic teaming thing again, is this will basically, what we're kind of looking to do with this, I think, also is, this is going to affect matches a lot more than casual play. I think just the change itself, because this will make it so as refs, we actually have like a concrete thing in game to stop medic teaming. Because right now there's a lot of, I don't know what to call it, but sometimes it'll get caught, sometimes it won't. It's hard to see if the player gets healed.
You really have to be watching for it every single time.
Yeah, like the restore is easy
sure.
to see, right? But like one sword
yeah.
swing that gives regen could be hard to see.
Yeah.
And we've essentially been put in a position where if you have, even if you have 2 refs in a match, which normally is great, that means both refs will normally be watching either flag holder. So if there happens to be medic healing in combat that's away from where either flag holder is, we may miss that. But we essentially have no means of constantly watching for it and enforcing it. So we've essentially just had to cut down our enforcement of people medic teaming to people with the flag.
Yeah. So, but just being able to put that in game and this is now here, it makes it a lot not only easier on us, but it also I think will just improve gameplay overall, because we do see a lot of medic teaming in normal games as well, where players will get on a 5-man medic team, stuff like that. And it's not the best for new players.
The fix is mostly intended for public games as well, because there is no reason why you couldn't just run a 5 or 6 person medic offense in game.
Yeah, so it's more of a quality of life thing for matches, because we don't see medic teaming a lot, but in normal games it should help quite a bit. Alright, so that covers all the questions we had from the forums on ELF and the surrounding class updates. We did have some questions concerning other classes, though, that weren't mentioned on that thread. Or other ideas that weren't. The first of which is another medic question, actually, and it's from Rathation. He asks, were there any other options to buff medic instead of Sharp 1? For example, full Prot 1 or a knockback sword?
Ooh, full Prot 1 for a class that already has regen. I think that may have ended up being a little stronger than medic with a Sharp 1
Yeah, I think
sword
that
in the
probably
first
would have made it
place.
way too tanky.
But
Made it a secondary heavy.
that is an interesting approach for medic, buffing its durability as opposed to buffing its sword to improve survivability. I guess that was an option, but at the same time, I do think full Prot 1 for medic would, that particular iteration would be a little too strong.
Yeah, I mean, and at the time also the reason I guess Sharp 1 was considered so heavily, and this is coming from me from perspective, I actually didn't support Sharp 1 getting added to medic, so, but even from me just seeing it, the reason we really went with that, I think, is there was overwhelming community support behind it. There are multiple threads on it. When we ran a poll in game, I think 80% of players voted for it. So that was really the change the community was pushing for, so we decided to give it a shot, and again, it seems to be going fairly well.
That was the only change that was really known by the general public, too. So
Yes,
they didn't really think of any other options.
Yeah, they were just really behind it, and we decided to give it a shot. And I mean, it didn't break the game, so I think it's alright. I still think it's underutilized as far as medicapping and stuff goes, but it turned out better than I thought it was going to. So
yeah.
A lot of medic questions here.
Yeah,
next one.
Medic was definitely a hot topic. So we do have a question from Nin on what we think of 2 specific medic ideas, one being the thread Miskey posted, and one being Nin's own medic idea thread.
Yeah, I guess I can talk on mine real quick, just to kind of give a little idea of what it is since I am here. So the medic rework I suggested was, so the restore, there's going to be a restore cooldown similar to what we're implementing in the medic team thing right now. but my idea was to apply it to any classes, so in combat you couldn't get restored. Because the biggest problem I personally see is, with recovery a lot of times, you'll be running up to a player and they'll get hit once by a medic, and that basically resets your entire recovery. You need to regroup, get back with your team. So restore timer would remain the same once it's administered, and then on top of that, the medic's normal regen would get increased to regen 6. So you'd focus more on constantly hitting the player while they're in combat, rather than, just healing them once and then, killing recovery. Medic sword would have been buffed to sharp 1 with this, which it already is. And then regeneration would have stopped when a player hits full health until it's reapplied. So you would have constantly had to be hitting that player or staying with them. And then the only other thing mentioned in it was just the whole red dot, green dot thing they were planning on adding anyway. So a lot of these ideas are going into what we're doing at the moment, but there are a couple other ones there.
Yeah. Having taken a look at Nin's thread, and this is just a very quick look, his suggestion was that the initial hit on a player gives regen 4, which is a tick down from regen 5, which is the current idea. And then once the player is at full health, instead of instantly restocking the player on all of their items, hitting that player again gives back 1 stake or health/regen pot, as well as fully restocking other items. So basically you would only get 1 extra healing item back, but the rest of the ability items would be fully restored.
Yeah.
I
Which
like
is an
that a
interesting
lot.
approach.
Yeah, I like that too.
It definitely helps medic turn from more of a pit stop for a flag carrier into a constant support that's sort of needed.
Well, yeah, and
I
think both ideas kind of tailored towards that as well. Just because that's the problem, I guess. It's medic just running and getting that restore is a bit of a problem. So both the ideas kind of just tailored towards slowing that down or preventing it to some degree completely in combat.
encouraging a bit more support on the cap, so it's not just a 2-man job, but you need someone to actually kill the support off, so the medic can get that constant heal.
Yeah, because right now medic you just heal, right, and then you start killing support, so you don't need
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
third
it's
player sometimes.
obviously not every situation is as easy as medic and soldier or medic and chemist get the heal, run off safe and sound. There's multiple times where you can get ninja'd easily, but still, it's an issue that sometimes happens. So
It would also present an interesting situation with stalemates, because, and I think Nin elaborates on this a little bit in his further explanation. You might even have more of an incentive to pass to a different flag holder who would start off with the 4 or 5 stake or whatever they have, as opposed to the 1 stake you would have from the person who initially stole. But even then, that person's stake would get worn down pretty quickly. So
yeah, it also just gives more help to the recov, so you don't just get 1 chance every time you recov to wear down all of the stake. If you keep pressuring them, you can keep the soldier 2 or 1 stake if you keep the damage up and the medic off.
Well, yeah, and in both these ideas as well, killing the medic means a lot more than what it does now, right? Because if the medic's on cooldown and you kill the medic just runs back and restores the player, right? But with Nin's idea, for example, that's really, if you kill a medic and the player takes a lot of hits, they're going to lose a lot of, stake and whatnot. And with the idea I mentioned, if they come back and their player's getting hit, they're just not going to be able to restore them. So...
So anyways, yeah, that's definitely worth some consideration.
Yeah.
Next question is from current mod applicant and British-Belgian extraordinaire, Unifier. The question is, which classes need a buff the most? And I don't think we have a consensus opinion on this as the committee, so I'd like to hear what everyone has to say.
I think elf / chemist, but elf's getting the rework, so I'll have to base my opinions on elf after that gets implemented. As of chemist, I don't know, I play a bit of chemist here and there, and it's useful, but at the same time, it gets steamrolled so much. And obviously it was worse back then when we had the old 10 health pots and
Yeah.
no mana bar. But at the same time, I feel like we really kind of nerfed the class into the ground where it's, viable in some situations, but
You have to be very good at it.
it could still be more viable and not break the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it kind of gets rolled over by, like, things that are strong now, like heavy and, like, buffed heavy and soldiers.
Ninja as well.
Ninja.
And we have a lot of good
It's
ninjas in
always
the game
been
right
Ninja.
now.
Ninja's
But,
always
yeah.
been a problem.
Ninja's always been a problem,
But yeah, it can't keep up with those classes, and usually people just go those classes instead.
You know, it's interesting though, because there was a period of time when you had 10 health pots where a good chemist would be almost unkillable for a ninja just because of how massive the health pool was and because you have AoE damage to deal with it. So that is also a relatively new change.
I mean, yeah, you look at teams like Annie, Genetic, BK, Defy, like way back then, right? Half those rosters were chemists, so.
you don't really see a ton of chemists in matches anymore.
No. Usually they're just there to buff, and then maybe they'll go on an offensive. But
Yeah,
then
so-
they'll just die and switch.
But the class, I think, if I might jump in here,
Hey, go for it.
is that most desperately needs a buff or a complete rework. I'm leaning towards complete rework. Is Dwarf right now?
Oh yeah, I can agree. With that.
It's sort of a it doesn't get discussed much because you really don't have dwarf players. It is the least played class in CTF in terms of actual amount of time that it's been played on Brawl. But it's just extremely ineffective, and you have a class that's already there, sitting there, that you could rework, completely redo, and make a better class, but we're doing nothing with it, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And
I
also,
agree.
Abandon matches because of how the playstyle is, essentially.
yeah, I mean, if
But-
we're looking at it from like a business perspective, even the amount of people that own Dwarf compared to other classes is like very low. So like, just making it into a completely like new and better class would be a really good like business move for Brawl as well, because it would sell well, And a lot of regulars don't even have Dwarf, Engineer, Necro, those kind of things either.
Yeah. I mean,
So
the thing about reworking Ninja is that you have to take into consideration that you have a lot of people who play Ninja, you have a lot of people who have bought Ninja, and Ninja, is a very fun class to play. People enjoy it in its current state, and it's one of the top purchase items that Brawl has over.
Ninja has a higher play rate than free classes on CTF,
Yeah.
which is insane just to think about, but people really enjoy the way the class works. My personal one, and I guess this is kind of biased, if we're talking just buffs, I'd say Necro. And Necro's always been in this spot where, like right now, it's like situationally viable. Like maybe pull it on the airlock rework, like on opposite, something like that. But it's never really. It's been so long since Necro's really had like a foothold on defense, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think we've already buffed it twice since the rework, right? But the buffs we've given are just minor things that kind of just like annoy players. I feel like it's not really in need of another.
Elephant in the room. The current mob AI for Necro is terrible, and it's a big part of what's holding back Necro.
Yeah.
I would like to say though that last week I got 2 mob kills, which is like the
boy.
record for the year.
Give this man a medal.
Oh boy.
Zombie and I are working on something. Kind of.
Yeah, kinda, yeah.
Oh, one thing I want to say before we move on is I think Assassin used rework that would maybe even like be effective before we move over to 1.9. I was saying this the other day, but I think we could probably work something out to where it would be less frustrating to play as a recov class or defense clearing, whatever.
Yeah, Assassin
class.
Glass Cannon is an issue.
Yeah, it's pretty bad right now.
I think we are going to get into that actually a little bit later.
Yeah, okay.
So.
The
Give
Necro
Assassin a jump boost pot.
Hey.
Necro got overshadowed by Elf.
Yeah, and
Because
again,
the-
like Necro is very close to being viable. I think like just a couple good changes. Like if the mob AI was good, I think the class would be really strong. Because honestly, like having played like quite a bit of like survival recently. The mob AI on Necro is like borderline like worse than vanilla,
Yeah.
Borderline potato.
which is like
Yes.
crazy to think about that like this custom coded like class is worse than what we're seeing in like vanilla Minecraft for the mobs.
Yeah, how can that relate?
But so those are the two biggest things I think we're looking at is that, and then potentially maybe something else for the, you know, buffs. Because like right now, I don't know, stuff like for example speed 3 on the zombies, just it makes
It
the AI
breaks it.
worse at the moment.
Yeah. They
So
don't
like
really
maybe
know what to
changing
do
up what
with
the
it.
buffs are and what they give, maybe some more creative stuff. But yeah.
So we've discussed a bit on here about the issues of, about buffing classes, but top 3 classes that you'd like to see reworked and any ideas you have for them. The question is from Spades, and I guess that can include classes that we may want to see nerfed as opposed to just buffed.
I mean, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, like the 3 that really come to mind are Assassin, Dwarf, Engineer. I think
Yeah.
those
Are
are classes.
we
that are-
doing like ones that need a hardcore change or something that need tweaks?
Well, this is rework. Is the question.
Oh.
Okay, yeah,
Rework?
so I guess that's a larger change.
So like I'm just gonna say like Assassin, Dwarf, and Engineer have been 3 classes that have been sitting here with this, you know, like really, some of them awkward gameplay, some just really bad gameplay on like Dwarf and Engineer, and they've been sitting there for so long. There's been so many ideas, and I think honestly they're just due for a major change. And again, in
Yeah.
like even with Dwarf and Engineer, not a lot of people even own those classes. So like that would be a really good move for Brawl, just to, you know, make them into a new class, or like for Dwarf make it a new class, Engineer make it just have better gameplay, get people to buy the class, you know.
I'd like to see a rework for Archer, which sounds kind of weird, seeing as I'm more of an Archer main, but it is like extremely broken on some maps. It's terrifying how much effect I can put into a game when I'm being pressured by 3 ninjas. So something like the bleed effect, something else, just to help, you know, kind of cut down on Archer's overall effect in game.
I mean, I think we do have
especially even if we put in something like similar to Nin or your rework, where stalemates are not as much of an issue, then that would definitely give Archer more incentive to be nerfed a bit.
Yeah, that's what I was
Because
going
right
to
now,
mention.
Archer is extremely useful in those situations when it's a medic with heavy or medic with soldier, and you really can't do jack about it.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my main point, and we run into the same issue with Ninja with Arch that we have in Ninjas. It's a super high play rate class, and it's super necessary with how medic is right now to like end some of these crazy stalemates, right? Especially on maps like Blackout, where you see everything else coming, and Archer's really the only thing that can, you know, reliably take a flight carrier down.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of, you know, good Archer reworks.
Yeah.
So we're definitely not like clawing around for ideas here. It's just if we implement it now, then
But like after,
sort of.
you think like after Elf and medic changes, right? That's something that could, you know,
Mm-hmm.
come to fruition, like really be a topic to discuss.
Mm.
It's something we are looking forward to. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other classes you guys would like to see reworked or think deserve major reworks? I mean, I guess we can discuss Assassin, right?
I mean, yeah. The thing with a lot of the Assassin reworks is that they sort of mirror... Like, if you get rid of the insta-kill for Assassin, which has been a premise for a lot of the reworks, and change it to something different, then you're essentially looking at a rework that makes Assassin have a lot of overlap with Ninja. So it's sort of difficult to change the basic premise of Assassin and also make it a separate class from Ninja, or not make it an inferior Ninja. So
Yeah, most of them just make it like a discount ninja. It's got speed, but doesn't do as much damage.
like
Mhm.
there was an idea that I believe MH posted a couple of years ago now, which gave Assassin an item called Mark of the Assassin that made it so that an individual person who was tagged would lose some of their abilities, and any damage they took over a 3-second span was added up and dealt to them again. And I thought that was a cool way of approaching it. It would make it so it had much less to do with blocking and, you know, a player's individual ping. But my concern with that idea now, anyways, is that is still a single target ability. That's not like Assassinate, which you can just,
Play your
okay,
finance.
you see 5 or 6 people lined up here, you trigger Assassinate, kill them all. Losing that ability may also make the class less fun to play. And there are people who I am told enjoy playing Assassin. I believe we have a couple of them in the stream chat right now. So
Yeah.
it's a very difficult class to balance, is I guess what I'd say.
It also runs a lot on that. Most of the reworks now are including 1.9 plus PvP mechanics, keeping that. So it's also a lot of the questions on the updates into the different PvP mechanics, how that generally plays into changing CTF.
Yeah, I will say that I was in favor of that whole, like, I guess, like, what you compare it to is, like, Rogue and HG, like, disabling kit abilities and stuff before. But now, after seeing what the Elf Rework is going to be, and, like, the fact that we're not really buffing it, we're just kind of fixing some bugs with it, there's going to be a lot of crowd control available in CTF already. And something like disabling Soldier's Wall Climb on top of Free Spell, on top of Earth Spell, stuff that's going to become, you know, more meta soon. Or, no, well, not Earth Spell, but, like, Pure Element, because we're removing Earth. But, you know what I mean? There's going to be so much CC, and I don't think an ability like that would really fit into, like, current Capture the Flag without, you know, just perma-locking a player, which I don't think is something we really want. That being said, we're definitely, I mean, open to any ideas you guys do want to give on Assassin. We kind of, I guess, touched on what we do think needs to be reworked, so that's... If you guys have any ideas on those, feel free to post them, because we are looking for community feedback, and we always take that into account when we are discussing these changes.
So we do have we have a lot of stuff here, honestly, for class-related stuff, so I'm just going to pick a couple more here.
Yeah, go for it.
We didn't actually discuss Engineer. And Super Me Too would like our opinions on Engineer, whether it's broken or bad, and whether it should be reworked and how.
I think it is bad.
And
on certain maps.
I honestly think Engineer is at an okay point right now for what Engineer is.
Agreed.
I think Engineer's Teleporter right now is still a very strong ability if people notice it and it's well set up. Engineer's Turret can be used for a very strong hardpoint for offense. It can make recovery pretty hellish for, you know, a flag holder who chooses to go buy that turret for safety. So I think it does play a pretty strong support role right now, and it is good for that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
People
I think
don't want Engineer to be any stronger, by and large.
Yeah, I think the general consensus with Engineer is a lot of people just like think the class is annoying, which doesn't mean it's necessarily good, but it doesn't have like super healthy gameplay, I guess is what that means.
Right, I think it's. I said it was bad earlier, but what I really meant was that the gameplay of it is kind of. It's
terrible.
Stale. It's stale. It's not the active kind of gameplay you'd like to see out of a lot of classes.
I'd say Engineer is fun when you have other people to play with, because
Yeah.
a lot of the best mechanics that, you know, you can do with Engineer that, you know, make the game fun are, you know, Engineer helping people ghost cap, for example.
Yeah.
Or Engineer helping with dwarf caps. That's always fun.
Yeah, so
It's that you set up the two-way teleporter. One goes to the flag room, the other person puts one going back to your spawn.
Well, this
And
is a
then
class
get a
you
dwarf.
sit down with a group of people and you have some fun, you know.
Exactly.
yeah, and it's a fantastic support class for that role.
Other than that, Engineer's just there.
I honestly think there's like 100 directions we could go with Engineer. Like, every single ability Engineer has, the turret, the cake, the teleporters have had like
I
100
do,
ideas suggested for them.
I do think Engineer's single turret, though, is a little bit of an issue. It's, you know, it can be spotted pretty easily out in the open, and while having that extra block there provides a little bit of cover from headshots and the like, it doesn't really do all that much. And, you know, we've also seen that sometimes being able to repair your turret after arrows have fired is a bit of an issue. So I do think there are very real issues with the engineer's turret. And my recommendation to fix engineer is to instead give it 6 smaller, basically head-sized sentry turrets. And
Okay.
those sentry turrets will fire a single, fairly strong laser at anything that passes within a certain radius of the engineer.
I see what you're going for here.
I do too.
What? I have
So
no
basically,
idea.
you could set up those like 6 sentry turrets behind a wall or something, and when players walk past that wall, they will get lasered and die.
It's funny you mentioned that actually, because like I've kind of been thinking of a Symmetra like idea for engineer, like with the whole like teleporter and like smaller
Way to give
turrets
the
thing.
game away.
Okay.
I'd like
okay.
to see engineer more traps though. Something like back when there was headshot demo man with the C4 packs they'd be able to put around the map. That was pretty fun watching someone walk over it and then
Yeah.
explode.
My
That's
favorite.
what I'd like to see in engineer.
My favorite headshot class was terrorist. You'd run in, blow up, and kill anyone around you.
That's good meta for engineer right now.
Let's
That
just
would be
add
perfect
that to
meta.
CTF. Just instead of assassin, have the flag room clearing class.
That's
just
the new
run
free.
in and blow
That's
it
the
up.
new free
Honestly-
recov class.
I
Yeah.
am honestly kind of curious, though, how people would react to engineer being able to place its turret on ceilings.
Oh.
That would be
Oh, like
That
top
would-
down.
Yeah, I mean,
Top-down
you'd have to
turrets,
be
that
able
would be
to
cool.
reach the turret from where you're standing, which would mean that, people who are... people would be able to attack the turret, at least by
Mhm.
jumping and hitting it. But it would open up a lot of options for engineer.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking like hanging, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
hanging
Yeah.
turrets.
That's actually. Wow. It's a pretty interesting idea. I mean, an engineer again is like another class where I think we're like super open. Like, there's a ton of stuff we could do. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing with engineer. There are a lot of possibilities, but people really don't like the class around the community, so that makes buffing it a bit difficult to do.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of classes actually in that kind of spot, to be honest.
So we have a question from Campkin, which we discussed already. Any chance?
Yeah, I
for
think we
better
hit on
AI
Archer a
plays
bit.
and skeleton necro mobs. And the
Oh.
best answer we can have to that is that depends on what the coders can do in terms of AI, which I'm guessing is limited.
Right now, not too much, but hopefully soon.
We discussed Archer already. And we have touched on the most dominant classes in the metagame, right?
Yeah, I think it's Archer, Medic, Ninja.
Yep, I'd argue that heavy has a foot in
Yeah,
the
I
door
think
right
so.
there.
Like heavy and soldier also just like.
Yeah.
it-
Well, heavy
it's-
especially just in
Heavy just, like,
enclosed
two-shot.
spaces.
Yeah.
4
And-
out of 5 being free classes, and the remaining one being the most popular premium class. So,
Yep. I think the thing we'll say here is it's like the classes we see in matches the most, right?
Yeah.
It's like something like Pyro even comes to mind. Like just the core classes you need. It's like Pyro, Assassin, Heavy on defense, right? And Ninja,
Yeah.
and then like
I
Soldier,
don't know
Medic on.
Assassin,
Well,
and I'd say
Assassin maybe less.
unfortunately has sort of
but-
fallen out of that group. You don't need to run an
Mm.
assassin on defense, and it can
But,
be
like-
very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We saw a couple examples today where a good assassin, such as in this case Jickd, can do a lot of work on defense against a team like the Adventurer. So all in all, I'd say assassin is still powerful, but it's not something you need in
It's
every
not up
game.
there with the other ones you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tournament. The next section of questions are on the tournament, and we only have 2. Firstly, what are our predictions for the tournament's final 4?
So that's gonna
Oh,
be
man.
semifinals.
Yeah.
Someone else go first.
I'm gonna go ahead and chime in here. I think it's gonna be Annihilation, but 4 times.
Hey,
Yeah,
we-
I'd have to.
we
I'd
do-
put my-
Okay, so apparently Hana has joined the call.
He's been here
We're
for
gonna have to
forever.
wrap things up here.
I've been here for a little while because I was, like I do, reading the Twitch chat, and I noticed that there was a question on non-staff members in the committee. And
Yeah, we're actually
I don't
getting
want to
there
interrupt,
very
but
soon.
when we get there, I will be here to answer things.
Interesting point you do
Okay.
bring up though. Annihilation does have 4 times the chins of the average CTF team, so it is possible.
That's accurate.
God.
Miskey,
Anyway,
just because that holds true for you doesn't mean it holds true for the rest of Annihilation.
but I make up for what we're missing.
He makes up for 3/4 of
On
Annie, though,
average.
so I mean...
I think you're overestimating the number of chins.
I think this begs the old joke of having more chins than a Chinese phone book.
Okay.
Incredible.
Anyway, actual
but
predictions.
What for top four,
Expectations
top
for
four,
the
top
final
four.
4 on the tournament, and I think I've had enough time to make my predictions. So for starters, we do have some remaining tournament matches. I'm personally Delta Force hasn't played any of theirs in their group, so I'm expecting them to completely lose out, and we'll see Scorched, TC, and TBF advance. And then on the other side of things, we have had all of Adventurer, I mean, not Adventurer, decidedly not Adventurer. We have had
The
all
other
of
ones.
Annihilation, Surgeons, and Templars qualify. So we more or less know the teams that the teams going into playoffs are. There are only a few questions remaining on that front, and right now, I believe the only realistic options, the only realistic question is whether TBF or Delta Force gets into that playoff round.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, I'm going to say our top 4 teams this year, the ones making it to the semifinal, will be Scorch, TC, Templars, and Insurgents. And that's a very safe prediction,
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
Or ADV if I slip up and mistakenly put ADV there, because I've been doing that a lot today.
yeah. So I think, based on what we've seen so far, I think Scorch and TC from that side of the record are definitely top 4. TT had a fairly bad showing for, I mean, just TT in general against ADV, but I think they've kind of cleaned up their act since, and we'll have a chance to see that very soon. I do think Insurgents is the stronger team currently out of any Insurgents, just because they have a lot more coordination and stronger PvPers, which is the current meta. But I'm hoping we can take them down. So I'm going to predict TT and Annie, and then TC and Scorch, but it's going to be a tough one.
I don't know. Insurgents really showed up in today's match.
Yeah, I
That
don't know.
was
Honestly,
very impressive. Actually.
if one of TT and Insurgents loses, the way I've seen the matches go so far, I think TT has more of the weaknesses that can be exploited out of the two. But of course, now that I've said that, TT is going to show up and prove me wrong.
As they always do.
So I think that covers Final Four, unless if anyone else has other.
I mean, we got to hear
No,
from Winter.
suggestions.
Winter thinks DF is going to get in, right?
Yeah, I do. I think you guys are kind of out.
Winter, will
because
DF
we haven't
play
had
a
a
match?
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys have to
if
qualify
other
for
teams
the
will let
playoffs.
us schedule with it. We haven't been able to get a match with anyone. We've tried for like the past month, and they've all like rescheduled the day or two before. So, yeah, I think you guys are counting us out.
Odd
When
how that
we
always
are
happens at the DF matches.
Doing well.
I mean,
No.
I feel like you're not taking the whole picture into consideration. Based on our sample size of 1 match that DF has had this year, they are undefeated. So I'm gonna call first place.
Yeah, they've won.
I live
Perfect.
vicariously through
Yeah,
statistics.
tournament's
That's
over.
about it.
Like, another
Hey, remember when
TTDF
you
again.
claimed Radiance Reborn was the team of the year?
They're my team of the year. They're not.
They're my
No.
team of the.
Well, actually, that's not true though, because TC was my team of the year. And they've been my team of the year twice in a row, and they probably will be.
So you're just
if
lying to
CTF
us.
is still around.
You know, damn
Right.
straight.
Well, I have 2 categories. One is what I think the best team of the year is in spirit, and the other is what I think the best team of the year is in statistics.
So you're saying
So-
TC is going
Spirit's
to be the
always
best
gonna be
team this year?
Anyways,
Yes.
Anyways,
moving on to a little more of a substantive question. Do you think another tournament will happen next year? And do we have any ideas or plans for tournaments in the future? We had similar questions from James and Cardona.
From a statistics perspective, I would say it's I think you will have another tournament next year, but we have this phenomenon, which is the revolving door of teams going on right now. And when you have teams forming and disbanding this rapidly, a tournament that takes too long is bound to have at least one team disband during its run. And I think if you're
And
going
apparently
to have a
too
tournament
long
that,
is less than 1 month right now.
yeah.
yeah, I actually have a page on the spreadsheet that'll show you the history of how fast teams disband and form. And I think if you want to have a tournament with a reasonable number of teams, it's unrealistic to plan around all those teams being there. And if you don't, then it's just going to be a really small tournament. And at that point, I don't know, you know? Is it
Yeah.
worth it?
But with that said, we could also have other tournaments that aren't necessarily team-based as well.
Yes.
We did have the regional tournament last year, and that had its successes, definitely.
Definitely
Uh,
looking
have
into
I guess
the-
what I'd say is we got some feedback along the lines of we need to do better balancing teams.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there were some instances where teams had issues getting players to show up or issues with communication in their calls, and we do need to improve on those for regional tournaments in the future. The unfortunate thing is that CTF's community is so spread out across the world and concentrated in odd ways that it does become difficult to do a regional tournament, or at least a regional tournament that's outside of
U.S. and Europe.
regions in the U.S.
Um,
And that sort of led to weird accommodations, like we had to put Brazil with Southeast Americas because there were a lot of Brazilian signups who wouldn't really fit anywhere else.
So another tournament idea that Spades actually brought up on the thread, and I think I have it written down further below, but I probably should have included it here. Spades just like a co-op or like I forget exactly what he called it. Tag team tournament, where like two teams would band up and they'd go on and take other teams on. And I think that's a really good idea, but I think it would require like more teams than we have at the moment.
I would agree with that.
Because right now you'd be looking at 3 matches.
It would essentially be a 4-person tournament, yeah. Four tag teams right now.
Yeah, and you're looking at 3 matches total, which wouldn't be much of a tournament, but that could be a fun little event to do, though.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd call that a tournament at that point. If we were, back where we had like 16, 18 teams or something, right? Then that could definitely,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
be a really good thing.
I
So if
mean,
we do end up
we-
getting back there.
We do have a suggestion for the Crusading Adventurers in chat by the looks of it.
Yeah, and I think TBF and Insurgents were discussing going together, so...
Yeah, Blue Surgeons. has a
Annie
plan.
TT? Snowleaky in the chat? No. But,
Oh,
I
come
mean...
on. We know that TT has only one true soulmate in terms of teams out there. Unfortunately, Delta
The
Force has
Flexers?
some better days, but
Oh,
no.
DFTT, okay. That's, yeah. Oof. So that leaves Annie what? We'd be with Scorch.
have
I
the
think that
Jammers.
leaves Annie with their right hands.
Scorch. Annie Scorch.
Annie Scorch.
Hmm.
Wouldn't be bad, necessarily.
That being said, yeah, that could be a cool idea for an event, but I don't think at the moment, I don't think that tournament's too possible.
I think we're also we're gonna do the U.S. versus EU soon. New Year.
Yeah, there's a lot of events coming up that basically right now, like last year I tried to do an event every month. It kind of fell apart towards the end of the year due to be getting busy and whatnot. But I want to try to do that again this year, but once the tournament is over. So the tournament
yeah.
is kind of our event for like, February, March. And then once that's over, I want to start doing those events again. And we have a lot of cool ideas that we didn't use for last year. And I guess one I can kind of throw out there is we had something called the Deserver match that we talked about. Which was, I don't know. Does anyone remember exactly what it was?
No,
I
I
mean,
don't
idea of it.
actually.
Okay,
No,
so
no,
like, Deserver is like reversed backwards. So like, the flag posts are swapped, So think of like Old Getty Gardens
Oh, that.
Oh,
I
that.
remember that.
and the mods versus reps map with like the flag at spawn and stuff.
And we do have a lot of event maps that are just sitting around not being used as well. We could do a new version of the mods versus reps game, for example, although we are a little short on reps right now, using the map capture, which is sort of the large castle where one team defends and the other team tries to take their flag up to the opposing flag.
Mm. Yeah, so event-wise, there's a whole bunch of things to look forward to.
Yeah.
And again, I think our goal for that is to start doing them maybe once a month, maybe a little bit more if we have, because like stuff like 1v1 and like 3v3 tournaments that we did last year will be dragged
Wasn't
out.
there the map that someone submitted for the last map wave that was like the giant maze in the library?
Oh
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the maze
Yeah,
crossover.
we could. No, it was a brand new one someone made.
Oh.
Oh, yeah,
I think I know what you're
talking
talking
about.
about. Yeah.
The library
And
one.
we
could have
also
that.
do have a map called Checkmate, which is a chess
Oh yes,
CTF
that one
map.
was a good one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah, so basically expect some brainstorming cool events coming out
Keep
after
your
the
eyes
tournament ends.
posted onto the forums when
In
tournament
fact,
ends.
don't just expect some brainstorming. Give us ideas. Like seriously,
Yeah.
feed us
Yeah,
ideas.
we like-
we want
we
to
like
know
ideas.
what you want in terms of fun events and stuff like that.
Yeah, like there are some staples like EU versus US, like 1v1 tournament were really low last year. Like, so those are things that we're gonna
Deathmatch,
do.
etc.
Deathmatch, yeah. But like that still leaves what? So that's 3 months there, and then you take 2 months out for the tournament, right? So like that leaves half of the year still, 6 months where we're,
7.
7. We didn't do anything January, so
Oh,
I'm
fair
counting
point.
that out. But yeah, so we have like half the year still where you guys can give us ideas, tell us what you want to see, and we can make them happen.
Oh yeah,
right?
one thing Bill Home did, and it's on his YouTube channel. So the medic race, or was it tag, or?
Oh
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
like mini games
that,
and
that looked
stuff.
fun. That looked fun.
Yeah.
And like the other thing we could do were other forms of parkour races with the different classes.
Oh,
we
yeah.
were considering doing a soldier one, for example, like an actually built-out soldier one.
Well, I think
Um,
that does.
Oh yeah, and so I'm just going to address something that's at right now, which I know we're doing the forum questions first, but
I go for it.
Rosuke suggested just go the TF2 route and have a bunch of game modes with the same classes. And that's brought up zone control a fair amount and so on and so forth.
Oof.
We could even do like a payload version of CTF, where a team push a minecart across a map that doesn't necessarily.
Why
have
are we taking everything from over?
I can't give it away.
Listen, Kev, shh.
Why
Oh,
can't we do
no.
Osu? Click the squares. Come
All
on.
of our secrets.
I don't think we have players
Remember,
for
guys, we're not copying from Overwatch. We're copying from TF2.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're copying from paladins.
Yes.
Sudden attack, as it were. So that is an idea that has always been tossed around for CTF. In fact, on MCPVP, there was a period of time where Hakluk actually wanted to make a bunch of different CTF-style modes with the classes to that effect, which is why you had a short-lived CTF hub that was split into two sides, one which would have taken you to something like a payload mode if that had ever been coded.
Well, yeah, at one point CTF and zones were coded as the same game mode, and you could switch between the maps. And it would function the
Hakluk
same.
never managed to pull that off because a lot of ideas that he had, especially about CTF, were never really pulled off.
Yeah.
Don't mean to rag on the guy too much, but for example, our partnership with MLG Gaming example was sort of an example of the amount of thought he would put into CTF. But I guess the main thing that would hold us back from that right now is it's a lot of coding, and we don't have that much of a dedicated coding team for CTF. We've very clearly seen the limitations of what we have in terms of coding in recent days. And the second thing that I think I'd say about that is that it's exciting. I'd love to try something to that effect, but you may also see backlash if it starts pushing out regular CTF games too much.
Yeah.
because people do like being able to just hop on and play CTF.
I
That's
think we want to build up the
one of the
community before
advantages
we
of the mode.
do anything at the moment. A little more. But yeah, I think that does cover tournaments, and we also talked about events there as well, so that was a good liaison. But after that comes the committee and related section, which is gonna basically, for those of you who don't know, we're all part of a committee. We discussed game changes for CTF, the team system, stuff like that. And we also have some roles, like referee and training and match referee, that aren't exactly committee roles that we'll be discussing as answers to some of these questions. So, boss, you want to take the first question?
Okay, the first question. This is where it gets fun and political and all
I'm
of that good
excited.
stuff. Hana's excited.
Which is a bad thing normally.
Oh, thanks.
First question from Armadrol Mugman. I've never really tried to pronounce that. Armadrol Mugman. Okay, that's not bad.
Admiral? I thought it was Admiral.
He's changed the name around a little bit. Why isn't So Cool 21 in the committee?
I'll take this one. So cool
No,
currently...
can I give people the answer that they want first?
Oh, go. You can give them the answer they want.
Sure, okay. We, as a group of individuals, are very biased against So Cool 21.
His
We don't
forehead's
like
too
the
big.
fact that he's British.
Clip it.
Fuck you.
We don't like his face. We think his forehead is too big.
Way
And
too
we
big.
just want to get rid of him from the staff team altogether. So, yeah, that's why we don't have So Cool 21 on the committee.
You hit all
Alright.
the points.
And now
You
for
can
the
actually sign our
politically correct
petition
answer.
to demote So Cool at we're
It's
raising
also why we
it's a
don't have James on the
GoFundMe.
committee for reference. We just don't like British people at all. Nohawks we can sort of deal with because he's
He's
Part
European,
German, so
but
he's
not
okay.
directly British.
It's the right European.
Yeah.
Similarly to Deep.
Alright, well, our politically correct answer, however, is that, so first off, we currently have a role called a referee in training, where this applies to CTFJ mods, this also applies to any moderator that, wants to go over to CTF and help ref matches, where they have to go through the same training phase a CTF mod would that wants to ref, where they'd, be shown the commands, whatever, have to ref a certain amount of matches, and then they'd be able to ref matches on their own. Now, CTF Committee currently is reserved for mostly CTF staff members, as well as one other person who is in this call, and we'll explain her role in a minute. And we do have some people sitting in at the moment, like Bob. So, yeah, but generally the committee is restricted to CTF mods, former CTF mods, in some cases. And, yeah, but Sokol does have ref and training, so if he does ref the required amount of matches, which I believe right now is 5 that he has to co-ref, right?
Yep.
He will receive match referee after a vote, assuming he passes, which he should. And he'll be able to ref matches and stuff like that. He also has a say on what happens in CTF, as does every other staff member through Slack and Discord staff chats as well. So we normally put any ideas that we're discussing in the committee there as well. So it's just team-related stuff that goes on in the committee that other staff don't really get to see as much. But that is something we're also working on, and I think we're going to touch on that later.
And Sokol hasn't been reffing matches too actively, but if he wants to
Well, he was on a
step up and-
break.
well, yeah, and
So-
I'm not trying to be critical here. It's just as opposed to Ningig, for example, who's been very active and just got the full match referee rank.
James also just refed his 5th match today.
Yeah, and we're voting on him right now.
Yeah.
But if Sokol wants to step up and take a more active role, then we could definitely give him some consideration for sure. It's not a group that sort of has hard and fast limitations on who can be in them.
Yeah.
Alright.
So that covers ref and training and match referee. So the next question is kind of regarding refs as well. And to sum it up, it's Drag saying that like a lot of CTF mods haven't been reffing a ton of matches, and he basically asks what's going to be done about that. What's going to be done to, kind of like split up the reffing more. And I think what we just discussed with referee and training, especially with Nin and James now, or well, Nin already and James presumably becoming full match referees, that is going to kind of spread it out, because we all have our individual schedules, right? And it does vary. Like, for example, Kev has been doing a lot of matches recently, right? Whereas last year, for example, you didn't do a ton, right? So everyone has, like, these schedules that vary. But the more people we have and the more people we can get to potentially ref matches, even for other game modes if they fulfill the requirements we just talked about with the co-reffing matches and stuff, the better. And that'll start taking some of the workload off of some of us who are reffing more matches, and it's just gonna spread it out.
I mean, and for me, I'm more of a casual mod. I hop on CTF, play a couple hours, hang out with people. I'm not the competitive
Ban
person.
hackers.
Yeah, I banned them.
Well, we all ban we should all be banning hackers.
Yeah, but
So.
I'm more of the casual guy. I'm not the full-on like team person. So, I mean, if last minute I'm on and someone needs a ref or a match setup or something, I'm happy to do it. But I don't really commit to anything because I have no idea if I'm going to be there at that time or not.
Right, and I'm kind of the same way, except I have some parent issues. Won't go into it, but like my parents respect my time can be on, and they like me to be on during the day.
Yeah, like we said, we all have like our own
So-
like specific limitations and
Yeah.
stuff. But I guess just the more
Yeah.
people we get, the less those will be relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I have my anime that I need to watch, so if there's a new season out, I'm sorry, no ref.
Yeah.
Kev is
And
working on his
important thing
latest
to
Box cosplay.
I can't
know it.
play in game that often, to be honest, and it's not something I have a lot of control over. I just need to put a lot of time into plotting to destroy the CTF team scene and
Which is understandable.
ban clean players. So all that fun stuff.
So we all have our good schedules going on. All right, I think that brings us to like the next question, though.
Yeah,
Hey,
one thing I just
Tom.
want to say before we do move on real quick is that, like, when we made the whole like match referee like separate from like committee thing and referee and training, that was an effort to kind of alleviate some of the pressure that was talked about in this question. So we are actively looking to work on
And
it.
hopefully to bring the people who are coming in as referees a little closer to the decision-making process for CTF as well.
Absolutely.
So, next question. And it's going to be a two-parter because these two questions are very similar. And I'm going to put them together because together they sort of form the whole
Flow well.
summary on the issue. So, the first part from Gamron. Why are non-staff members still in the committee when staff information is spread in the chats? And the second part from SDQ. Why do they have a vote on important issues when they're not staff anymore as well?
So Bob and
I
Hana.
feel like SDQ has a certain person. But Hana, you did want to talk about this.
I do want to talk about this. So I want to clear a few things up. First and foremost, Bob is in the committee chat. Bob is not a committee member. This means a few things. First of all, Bob does not vote on committee issues. And due to some rearranging that we have done, Bob does not get the sensitive staff information. There are separate chats, some of which he can see, some of which he cannot see. So any staff sensitive information, especially things in the vein of hacker reports, alt checking, things like that, those are not things that he can see, although he is in some committee chats. He's just here for a
Feedback and
different
ideas.
perspective of ideas and perspective from an ex-staff member, a veteran of the game, someone that I personally respect a lot, and I think other members of the community would say the same.
I think we can agree on that as a staff team.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
Apart from that, I never really left the committee after I stopped being mod. I
wait,
left for a little
sorry.
bit.
Hana, can I just cut you off here since
Oh,
there
sure,
was
sure.
a little bit of information that Aaron put in chat that is
Go
not
for it.
accurate?
Oh.
Scape is gone. Scape is not part of the committee.
Oh
chat.
yes,
Cannot see
yes.
anything.
We removed his perms after he left.
And regarding Hana being able to see that as well, Hana. So I recently did a rework of Discord perms,
Yes.
and Hana also. So that whole actually, I can check the Discord right now for it. Right, if I go in, we've separated the channels to where we want only the actual staff members to be able to see the stuff we talked about with cheaters and hacks and stuff like that. And again, it is Discord perms, and I'm still working on it. But for the majority of it, right. Hana is here for spreadsheets and helping, also generating some like team ideas and maybe some game stuff occasionally, right? And Bob is here for giving feedback and ideas on in-game maps and the team scene. So they're not having access to, like, say for example, right, player A of Annihilation, let's say, right? Annihilation player is suspected of cheating, right? Miskey's suspected of cheating, right? Hana will have no idea what's going on with that. Bob will have no idea what's going on with that. And Bob specifically won't have a vote on, you know, anything that would come of that. Hana has a vote when it comes to stuff like teams and stuff because she's the spreadsheet manager, but she will often abstain to stuff that isn't
yes, I
too
abstain
relevant.
from pretty much any gameplay related change just because I don't play the game anymore. I don't have a perspective on those sorts of things. It's not that I am banned from voting on them necessarily, but because I'm a committee member, I'm someone who you should trust to make decisions, you know, keeping the whole picture in mind. That is something that I know that I could not possibly make a decision on, so I abstain from that. And I trust other committee members to do the same.
Despite that, Hana is actually still the best archer on Annihilation.
That's probably accurate.
Brandino?
Hana is still probably the best archer on Annihilation.
Okay.
Dang.
Other things. Oh, yes. So one of the reasons that I think it's important for me to stay in the committee chat that some people might not realize if they don't really know what I do. I take care of most scheduling conflicts that come up on the spreadsheet. That means that I interact with reps a lot of the time. So it's good for me to have the committee as a community that I can sort of bounce ideas off of, that I can come to with problems that I might have with reps, stuff like this. If rules get broken on the spreadsheet, ultimately it's something that the committee would decide on. If tournaments are introduced, it's something that I need to reflect on the spreadsheet. Things like that.
Well, I mean, for example, there's a thing you brought up today, which I guess you might want to talk about. Just like,
Oh.
to show that you are doing stuff. Hana, what was it exactly that you brought up today? You mentioned it to us and then asked us regarding the, you know what I'm talking about.
What was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. The security changes that I've made to the spreadsheet, that is something that I run as an independent person, not as a staff member. It's something that I do with emails, and it's very heavily linked to the team scene, but at the same time, I want to give players the privacy to know that their emails, that's not all seen by the committee, that's just me. But it's something that's official, it's something that's administrative, so I need the committee to help me sort of do that.
Yeah, now we have a complete list of who can access the spreadsheet and everything as well. So it's a lot easier to keep track of. There's many errors going on and stuff. And Hana also keeps track. So when we report matches in the important chat, there's a little Brawl, team stats tab on there you can click on. It'll show matches, ref, all the stats, all stuff like that. And Hana at the end of every year makes a little post talking about them and stuff. But that whole entire thing is run by Hana there. We report the scores and Hana plugs them in the spreadsheet, does all the logistical work and stuff. So she's actually a very big part of the team scene that I guess goes a little bit unnoticed for those of you who aren't reps or aren't on the spreadsheet itself.
Yeah, I'm not just here to gossip and leak reworks and stuff like that. That's not what I do.
That's what
Cool.
we have the Brawl staff for.
Yeah, we'll leave that to Munson.
Dang.
Okay. I'm also slightly looking at the Twitch chat, so if you have specific questions for me about what I do, if you're scared of me, I can dispel those problems.
Yeah, we are nearly done with
Otherwise,
the forum section, so we will be opening up soon. So
Yeah. So moving along, the last section that we have aside from Miscellaneous is cheaters and violations. And again, we just wait, did I skip one? I did skip one.
Yes, we skipped Sokol's
yeah,
question.
it's actually a fairly important one.
my note.
Okay, so what's being done to fix the poor communication gap between the committee and the community from Sokol 21? And Miskey's note on here, I'm just going to read this out for you, and I quote, parentheses, I mean literally this Q&A, close parentheses. But as opposed to just literally this Q&A, I know that communication between the committee and the rest of the community has been sporadic at times. And we are definitely taking measures, taking steps, including this Q&A, to better communicate what we're trying to do for the game mode. So hopefully we will be able to have a better stream of information for you guys going forward to give you an idea of what we're doing and what events are coming up and so on and so forth.
What I really liked before, back when Bob was a staff member, he'd sometimes do these state of the game YouTube videos where he'd talk about random CTF things, and we might be able to bring that back maybe.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention.
As a whole, overall, in that time, the committee was less open than it is now, though. Apart from the state of the game things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also.
I do also want to mention that I will be uploading this Q&A with like timestamps for all the questions and stuff on there as well. So anyone that didn't see it here can go and watch that, which kind of relates to this question a little bit with us being open. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it'll all be there and organized.
And I'd say things have gone pretty well so far with this Q&A. I think, at the very least, that this has been somewhat informative. So we would like to consider doing this at some point in the future as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, whenever you have like major changes or something coming up, or if we notice a rift in the community that needs to be, sealed or something.
Sealed.
We may want to do one actually at the end of the tournament, just to talk about where things are going forward from there.
Yeah. All right. So.
Okay. So cheaters and violations then. The first question from. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Sporty Man. Will something be done about the ever-increasing amount of, quote, ghost client, unquote, users on CTF teams? Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I mean, anyone itching to take this one?
The reason why we sort of have a pause there is because we have very limited options. And
limited? We have like one.
Our option at this, what we have to do at this point is spend time looking at people, and if there are clear signs of them hacking, we have to ban them. And beyond that, I really can't give too much information. But
yeah, well,
I guess we're just working to the best of our abilities.
There is one thing that was stated publicly, and Putty has said this publicly, so we're safe to say this here, and if there's any flack from it, I'll take it. But he has said this on the forums before, and Putty is openly anti-screen share, which means that it won't be getting implemented on Brawl unless there's like a massive wave of support for it, which at the moment there is not. At least within the staff team to an extent. So
and the very first reply in Twitch chat to that comment was, in all caps, no screen shares. So
yeah,
it's not looking likely, right? There are definitely issues with screen shares, and people do like their privacy, so it's probably not going to be happening in the near future. But the fact that we were considering screen shares as a way of dealing with things should speak to the fact that we don't have access to all the tools that one might have when trying to crack down on an issue of scale. So
yeah,
we're doing what we can.
There are things behind the scene that we are doing in the staff team itself, myself specifically, and I can't really talk too much about it, but to improve staff members, or like help staff members get more acute with, detecting these kind of things with ghost clients and stuff, since a lot of these staff members are, especially some that are coming out of CTF now, as other game modes are losing players. They're from game modes like War, War Z, Party, stuff that PvP acts aren't incredibly common on. So there are ways we're trying to assimilate them in and, make them more acute or better at recognizing these things. I can't say a ton, but
good thing War Z players don't have a reputation for hacking.
Oh yeah. But we are actively looking for solutions and trying to work on it to the best of our ability, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should say y'all. We're all well actually no, never mind. Unless if you rejoin TT, I have no clue. But we all play. We most of us play CTF matches. We've all encountered our fair share of possible ghost climbers. It ticks us off too if we're playing against someone who we think is cheating. So it's not like we're just standing back and watching you guys flail around. It affects us as well.
Well, we were talking about match refs earlier and stuff, and I really like the fact that we're getting more and more of them now, especially with Nin and James getting here, is because let's just say theoretically, right, we're in an Annie versus TC match, right? Kevin and I are both playing. Boss is reffing, right? Boss is watching, one flag carrier. Kevin and I are playing, and say someone, just starts doing some, not blatant shit, but just is suspected of using Ghost Client, right? We need to pull in someone from another game mode or something, or we had to before. But now if we can get multiple match refs there to watch and stuff, it'd be a lot better. Because the issue I've always run into is if I see something from my own player perspective in a match that I'm playing in and I'm not recording, obviously if it's something blatant, I can just ban the player, right? But if I see something weird, I can't just pause the match, ban someone from the other team without a recording, and then So having more perspectives and getting more and more people in and reffing matches and stuff will definitely help with our accuracy of finding and catching more of that stuff. So.
Hey, speaking of ideas we can take from Overwatch, how about just being able to completely pause the game in time?
Good luck with that one. Is the mass freeze?
Yeah. Preferably when a frenzy comes out.
Yeah.
But let's see. The second question. Are there any plans to punish people for high levels of toxicity, such as certain players constantly telling other players to kill themselves during team matches? Especially given that players in-game were given much more extreme punishments for much less. And that question is from SoCool21. I don't necessarily know if I agree with some of the premises behind that question, but I think it is safe to say that we are lenient at times during matches than we would be on a public server.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, there are cases where we are watching. There are cases of repeated toxicity, even in the rep chat itself, sometimes in game, that we are watching for. So I just want you guys to know that. There have been cases somewhat recently, I won't say names or anything, where people have been kicked from the rep chat for stuff like that for a certain amount of time. And again, just like in game, if they continue to violate rules or do stuff like that, the punishments will get increasingly longer, more harsh. But we're definitely we know who some of these players are that I think this question is directed towards, and we're watching. I guess I'll say.
Yeah, we know who they are and we're watching them. It's not it's not going unnoticed.
apologize if my voice isn't very loud, by the way. I do have my mic all the way up, but it's directional, so it might not have been in the right position. Hopefully that's a little better now.
Alright. Yeah, I don't think there is too much we can say on that situation, but it's not something that's going unnoticed. Definitely, and if it does continue with what we're seeing right now, there will be punishments given out. And the players should know who they are, and they should stop what they're doing if they don't want to be punished.
Okay, so, apparently, Miskey, you need to turn me up in Discord if people want to hear me.
Let me just turn up my, volume just on overall on stream for you guys. Someone say something?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, you should be a little bit louder now. I'll turn you up slightly in Discord as well. Okay, should be good now.
Alright, so we did discuss a tag team tournament. That's the first thing under Miscellaneous here. Suggestion was from Spades. Secondly, do map votes /N versus /Y actually count for anything? Questions from Campion. Answer, yes. Yes, they absolutely do.
That's why we were kind of cracking down on people messing with the map votes beforehand, previous
Well, we
map
can now see
waves.
them and stuff too.
Yeah, because Since it's a community map wave, the voting is done in large part through map votes, and because we don't have forum polls for the maps being removed, the maps that we choose to remove are almost entirely done through /y and /n voting, so they are very important. And although they mostly matter when we're getting close to a map wave.
But it is very important to vote on maps you like and dislike.
Yeah. Next question, which runs right from that, is when is the next map wave going to happen? The question is from Sean. We don't have an answer for that. We have not really begun the planning process for map waves. One thing that I will say is that we haven't really had a lot of submissions for the map wave since Wave 13 compared to previously, so we would be a little bit short on submissions right now if we were going to be running that wave.
Yeah, well, there is one
Definitely.
big contributing factor to that, which is Gala.
Yeah. Gala is not making maps anymore, so you know, that. Although I
There
am
are some
told
still.
Alexis is coming back and doing some reskins, so
Yeah, I saw some of the stuff she was working on, Bill. It's interesting.
yeah, that might be fun for you guys in the near future.
And then, actually, one thing, if I could just bring it up right here, is I don't know exactly what we should do with it. There is a completed Metro rework from the Scavenger Hunt tourney, the winners of the Scavenger Hunt tourney.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So that's something we can kind of touch on. I wasn't around for the first one, so I don't really know what happened with Six's Island rework. But I don't know what the plans were for that, if
Okay,
it were to go through.
I can answer that question, actually. Firstly, we tested Islands 2, which was made by Seixos. It's completed, it's playable to this day, and it was played on a server a few times over the course of a week with, the full 50 or 70 people or however many it was on at the time. And the consensus opinion on that map was that people despised it.
Mhm.
And so we never added it to rotation. And
It was pretty though.
yeah, it was pretty. By 2014 standards, it was pretty.
It's pretty terrible
Texas
for
is a good
gameplay.
builder. Yeah, it is. So the rework was made. It is playable. The reward is there. It was just never added to rotation. Now, my understanding is that the map that was made for the we don't really have a map made for the recent rework. So the thing about Seixos making Islands 2 was he didn't really take a lot of feedback from the staff team. He didn't take any feedback from the community at all on the map. He basically just built it in private and gave them their Islands rework. So I think that was a bad approach. And for this next map that we're going to be doing as a treasure hunt reward, we're going to have to change that.
Well, I'm actually, if you guys want to, if you're on Build TP or if you look on the stream, I'm actually on the, it's pretty much completed Metro rework that Dave and Dan actually made.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely compared to the original map, the gameplay is like a lot better. But it's, I think we just need to like go through a lot of like testing again and stuff like that. And I think this is something that we could realistically, if it does go really well, maybe add before a map wave. Just because like the stipulation that was like behind it, maybe. I don't know.
Worth a
Something I
shot,
guess we gotta talk about. Yeah.
So other questions. The next couple are about credits, or next three are about credits from Flag Recovered, and these are our last 4 questions. So we may go a little quickly through those just so we can get questions from people in Twitch chat.
Mhm.
Firstly, is there any discussion on adding more methods to earn credits? Second, is there any discussion on ways credits could be used? And also, are we planning to ever do anything with the credits for those of us who have purchased classes with money instead? And lastly, is there any discussion on gifting credits to other players? So, yes, there is discussion on adding more methods to earn credits. Yes, there has been discussion on gifting credits to other players. And
That's been in kind of discussion.
You're cutting out like a lot.
yeah, Kev, you
Like every other word.
sorry about that. Lastly, is there any discussion on the ways credits could be used? Yes, and that's sort of where we have the most actual content to talk about. It would have been great for NoHawks to be here right now because he's done a lot of work on that. But amongst other things we have discussed, maybe having them, maybe making you able to turn them into limited cosmetics, but the issue with that is obviously Brawl wants people to spend actual money on cosmetics. We have also been considering turning credits into something you could use for a prestige rank, and Noox has done a lot of work on this, but basically for X amount of credits, be it 50,000 or 200,000 or so on and so forth, you could spend them and it brings you up a prestige ranking on the credit scale. And the prestige rankings would be pretty hard to get to. They would essentially be designed for people who spend a lot of time on the game as regulars. But that is an idea that NoHawks has put into place, and I don't have his document with me right now, but he's put a lot of work into it, so that's definitely a good question to direct towards him. If response to that is positive, we'd definitely love to go forward with that.
Yeah, one thing I will say, with what we're on like a minute ago here, with ways to earn credits, something I actually thought of like fairly recently that I guess I could just get some feedback right now for, is we already have like carrier kills and recoveries, giving more credits and stuff like that, but we already have something in the game to detect like how close the player is to the flag post, like through restrictions and stuff, right, for Necro. Thoughts on like kills within that radius giving double credits?
Yeah,
like saying like objective kills or something, right? It would be called.
Like I said earlier, I think that it's a good idea, but I think that to implement something like that, you need to be sure that kills from range also count towards that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
so like if an archer were to headshot someone there, they'd get the credits as well if they were outside of it, the arrow hit them inside. Yeah.
Healing is something that's been talked about as well as a way to earn credits. That's a little more difficult to do.
Yeah.
I want to mention one thing really quickly on this, because I know Rosk just said something about it in the Twitch chat. Encouraging turtling for this method of earning credits. I think that depending on what the numbers are, as long as you get the numbers right, then getting kills in that way, like turtling and earning credits that way, might not necessarily be as valuable as going and getting credits from steals, recovery, caps. So as long as the numbers are right, I think it would work. It's
I think simply right.
Issue.
We just make it kills in that area. Instead of giving 2 credits, give something like 4. Right? It seems super minor, but especially for new players who are going to be playing like heavy or like something around the flying post, right? Those extra credits are going to add up eventually.
The other thing we could do, actually, would be to give multipliers on the base amounts of credits earned based on the number of players you have in a game. So let's say you have 30 plus overall.
HG does that with games, so there's already something for that as well.
So maybe 30 players in a game, you get 1.5 times multiplier. 50 players in a game, or 45 plus, you get double the multiplier. Something to that effect. And that would encourage people to play in competitive games as opposed to just hop on a server and try and farm them.
That would also encourage players to more or less balance out the servers, because one of the problems we have now, actually, is we'll have one like 50-player server, then there'll be like 5 or 10 players on the other server, but they'll all just leave. So we could see like players kind of like creating 2 balanced games rather than one super big and one small with something like that as well. So I think we're ready to open up the Twitch chat, maybe.
I guess the one thing we didn't discuss that much was gifting credits.
Oh, yeah.
Is my mic working now?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, Kev.
Well, that was discussed a lot, actually. Like, that's been on and off for at least a year, ever since, like, credits was introduced. It was like, hey, can we gift them now? And, I mean, I remember bringing up some suggestions before I was moderator, but so far, like, it's that same thing, Brawl wants money.
Well, it's really tough because we need monetization to get coders and stuff to work on these changes, and then...
Yeah. So, basically, the debate is between us CTF people and higher staff on that.
Right now, it doesn't look like it anytime soon.
I'd say that we're generally on the side of the community when it comes to that as well. So,
Yeah.
we're working with you guys on that one. We're trying to convince Putty the higher up, stuff like that. Well, thankfully now we do have me and Boss in some of those chats, so it's a little bit easier to get communication between those parties at the moment, but it's still, we have to convince them, basically. And it's the same thing with a lot of stuff, but we are on your side as far as that goes. We have, I guess, our like general consensus would be similar to some of the ones that have been posted, I'd say.
Right, so we're going to have
Twitch
Twitch chat questions. We have a few already. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. So, first question here in Twitch chat that I do see is from Easy Skid. It says, will there be a specific deadline for all teams to complete their tournament matches, as a specific team hasn't played a single match yet, and there isn't a set deadline other than the middle of March? You want to take that?
I believe we're trying to get all the matches done as soon as possible. Don't remember if there was a specific time date that we were supposed to.
My goal, I would say, is probably so like second weekend of March, or let's say third weekend of March is like the 17th, right? That's probably the week I would like playoffs to start. So that's 3 weekends from now, right?
Yeah.
Which, so what? We have 4 or 5 matches total, right? In 3 weekends. I think that's realistically what I'm looking at. Or like, I guess us just in general, I'd say we'd probably agree on that. We're looking, that's when we want playoffs to start, because we want this tournament to be over by the end of March, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically. And so we'd have, how many matches? We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more matches, right? So that's the amount we have right now. So there's like 10 matches total. 5 of them in the next 3 weeks, and then 5 of them in the 3 weeks following that would be our goal. So we do like quarterfinals 1 week, semis, and then finals in those 3 weeks.
As for if you don't make the deadlines,
I think just
I think we count it as a forfeit.
Forfeit, probably.
Yeah, forfeit. I mean, yeah.
I would like to clarify one thing really quickly. You can only play for one team during the tournament. Stop asking.
Oh, okay. Hey. I need to clarify this. You can only play for one team per stage of the tournament. So for the first stage of the tournament, which is the group stage, you can only play for one team. But if you were to join a team before the playoffs started, you could play for a different team in the playoffs. So like Hayes, for example, who is on TT now, played for Valerie in the group stage, but is now in TT, cannot play until the playoffs. But once the playoffs are in, right, rosters are going to be locked as to who can play. If we're talking about switching between teams, obviously you can recruit someone new, but
yeah.
All right. So more questions from Pudgy. Why isn't turtling against rules in the tournament? Since it doesn't really seem like anyone likes it when it's done to them. And 2, Removers asked if you guys could say what he does in one of his works behind the scenes and goes unnoticed, like Hana.
Oh, thanks.
So firstly, why isn't turtling against the rules in the tournament? The best answer I can give to that, because I have given a little thought, is that the rule, like how you would define turtling, is either A, subjective, or B, you have to put an arbitrary limit in place. So, and you could make the argument that, well, if 20% of your team or less is on offense, then you are turtling.
as a ref, that's like...
But that's very difficult to,
yeah,
see specific numbers, and then, how do you classify people who might be roaming up a bit on offense?
like a ninja going from defense to offense.
Yeah. That kind of thing. And you could make the argument that yeah, well, everyone knows what turtling is. You can clearly tell when, a team is turtling, obviously, but
It's
that's
certainly a
not,
subjective thing.
yeah, everyone's standards are going to be different, and there are going to be cases where it's not cut and dry.
Well,
Yeah,
that
it's
and
just very
even if
difficult to enforce rules that don't have numbers
even
associated with
if
them.
everyone has that same understanding, right? When it happens against your team, right? Reps are still gonna like lash out and say like, "Oh, we weren't turtling," stuff like that. Even if they have that understanding, unless there's like a specific rule in place that states like, these are the numbers or these are the exact limits, right? There's always gonna be debate on that, even if everyone agrees on like, I know what turtling is, stuff like that. There's still gonna be bias in, obviously. So, yeah. Rumors asked if you guys could say what he does, since a lot of us are behind the scenes and unnoticed, like Hana.
James helps us ref matches. He keeps an eye on hackers and does things to that effect.
Mhm.
And
Recently
provides
switched
us
over to
with
CTF
a
mod,
lot of
JMod.
information to review.
Yeah, James did recently switch over from Kit to CTF JMod, so him getting match referee soon is going to be pretty good. Probably might happen today. We'll see. But yeah. Next.
There's one that I want to touch on that got asked earlier, which is
Yeah, go
what's
for it.
been coming up in the rep Discord a lot, which is this situation where you have teams only giving their maps at the last minute, and this is understandably really frustrating for people trying to organize matches and get an agreed pick. What are we going to do about that?
I would like to see.
Additionally, should we do it mid-tournament or wait?
I'd personally like to see a rule implemented on that directly after the tournament finishes.
Yeah.
But I think it's unrealistic to try and implement it midway through the tournament.
I would agree with that.
But like that's something I honestly think we should work on right after, because this is something like, and I'm just gonna bring this up because this is an example where I'm involved in. In the last tournament, the MSW tournament, we had a match versus Defy, and he did, where we picked Airlock Rook and they had not given us their map. They picked their map last second, and since it was Airlock Rook at the time, they told us we could not play Airlock Rook because they were allowed to do that. But they did that 10 minutes before the match started, so we had to come up with a new map pick, and we didn't have theirs. And I brought it up then, and it was talked about, but there wasn't really much done. But now that it's becoming like a more like major issue, and we're seeing it happen over and over again, I think it is something we should really visit like right after the tournament ends, and get something in place probably as soon as we can before any other matches continue.
It's very strange to me because I really don't remember this situation coming up very much when I was active in the team scene. So I think to an extent it might be a problem with rep culture right now being a little bit less organized. And there's not, obviously we can put rules in place to manage that, and I think that we certainly should. I think that also as reps you need to have a clear expectation of what your responsibilities are, and you need to do your best to just be a team player when it comes to scheduling matches, when it comes to working with the spreadsheet. Be respectful to other reps, try to reply on time. If not, you're not the rep that your team needs.
Well said.
Right, so we have another question here. This one's probably going to be my last one just because of time constraints.
Alright.
From Brandino B. Also, any thoughts on implementing an ELO system for regular games to give it a chance to be more competitive?
I actually have an interesting thought on this. And this is something I actually saw quite a while ago. Someone had mentioned putting like CTF Kit 1v or CTF Class 1v1s on Kit, and having an ELO system there. So like for example, you go on like a Ninja leaderboard, Ninja versus Ninja, Heavy versus Heavy, Pyro versus Pyro, with exactly how they function in the CTF, but on Kit for an ELO system. And I thought that was a really cool idea because that could help like players, get used to mechanics on those classes before coming over to CTF from Kit or something, and could also just like for classes like Heavy, generally like just help players with PvP and stuff. I don't know.
That's interesting. I never heard that.
It was a forum post that I saw like a while ago. It didn't get much like attention.
I
But
remember seeing that.
yeah, but thoughts on that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
That'd be interesting.
it is. The thing about an ELO system for competitive CTF as a whole, though, is we may not have the player base to do a separate competitive CTF queue with ELO, and we don't want to put ELO on the main CTF servers because a lot of people just enjoy playing it casually.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want to do is be, putting the ice blocks from the mage necro glitch across the map in a fancy pattern, and then have someone start shouting at you because you're not playing defense and you're hurting his elo.
Wait, you look at something like old CTF where like A1 was kind of like a casual server and B1 was like that. Sort of like all the regulars played on, like the really like triad regulars and stuff. Like something like this back then, right? Could have been like a really cool idea. So like making like B1 like count towards elo, A1 just be like regular, right? But we don't have the player base right now to support 2 servers up at the same time and
Yeah,
to be able to
that's
split
the
the
thing.
community up like that.
If
But I
we
do
could
think
have
that the whole
player
like
base to support
class
both.
thing on
From
Kid.
Wiki in chat?
I think that's so cool.
Oh,
That has that account. But
my hopes up.
I believe it's so cool. It might be someone else, but it's not Wiki.
Oh.
That being said, I do think the CTF kit 1v1 or CTF class 1v1's on kit. But I think that's a decent compromise actually for players to be able to show their skill in an individual class 1v1 without really having it be directly linked to like CTF games, I guess. And that could also be a good way to assimilate other players into CTF coming from kit if players want to recruit them.
Absolutely, because one of the big issues is people playing CTF may not be able to pick up the classes that easily, so that definitely helps with that.
Well, just being able to hop on there and constantly 1v1, 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 right? It's going to make players get a lot better a lot quicker. All right. Oh, that was
And
your last
also
one,
there's,
Buzz?
I was just gonna say there's the really big divide between the people who, like myself, who hang out on CTF with friends, have fun, and the people who try and play CTF how it's supposed to be played. So giving the people who want to play CTF the way it's supposed to be played, well, not that, but the people who want to go around and get kills at certain classes to get better, giving them a way that they're not ruining the fun for others while still enjoying what they're wanting to do is a good idea.
Well, that too. I mean, you could even like say like late at night, like, and you see this all the time during like Australian time zones, right? Where when it's like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. EST, you can barely even like play the game, right?
During
the weekdays.
Yeah, when I'm on late at night like that, it's usually all the Aussies and then the Americans with no lives.
Yeah.
And so
So
that's
then,
essentially what it is.
so then, like, imagine
So-
though, some of those Aussie players are still like want to play the game competitively, right? Imagine they'd be able to hop on kit, right, and go and like do those 1v1s and still like train up their skill and stuff, despite not having ideal game times.
Because the thing with the Aussie times late at night like that is most people are really good friends. So most of the time it's just people hanging out with their friends, and then there's those occasional people who get on and are actually like trying to get kills and stuff.
Hey, say what you will, I'm still gonna kill everyone I see trucing in the fly room, so
I mean,
I think that's the only real approach to playing the game.
All right, well, what a good note to leave on, boss.
Yeah, really good note. So basically, I think I've definitely enjoyed the conversation here so far. So hopefully we can go ahead and do another one of these at some point in the future. I'm sure Miskey will continue to take questions, but I've definitely enjoyed the ones I've been able to respond to. So thanks for the good Q&A, guys, and I will see you around.
I see you, boss. Thank you for coming. All right, so I am scrolled up a little bit in chat here. So what I'm going to do now is I'll skip down to where we are in chat at the moment. And if you guys have any questions that are missed, feel free to repost them. But we were reading some from pretty far up, so if you want any answered, feel free to post them again and we'll get to them. I'll be going for a little bit here if you guys want to hang out the rest of the committee and answer. We'll call it once we feel like the majority of questions have been answered. And...
Yeah, I'll be here for a little bit longer.
All right.
I can stay for like 10-20 minutes.
All right. Thoughts on ninja capping? Okay. I think ninja capping is very balanced at the moment, personally. I think all it takes is one good defensive ninja and you can't ninja cap, period. Or one heavy if get the flag post. That doesn't even need to be relatively skilled at all. I think
a couple of hits, fine, yeah.
I think the one thing ninja capping is super strong at is like when a stalemate ends, it gets you that steal immediately because there's going to be no one around the flag, right, in the match. Like in an 8v8, you can't have someone sit at flag during a stalemate. So it'll increase stalemates and it'll get you that other steal in the handoff. But I don't know. I think honestly it opens up gameplay more than it hurts it in matches. Just having I like the whole one ninja cap rule, to be honest. I used to like contest it a lot because like I just wanted ninja cap all the time, but I think the one ninja cap just allows you to have that option and opens up gameplay a bunch.
And the next question is, what about like, well, adding on to that, what about ghosting or prima in matches? Because there's some people who say, hey, we should be able to do it. Other people who are really angry that people do it.
I think that really comes down. If we're talking competitive wise, like down and sides to set the. I don't think MMR should restrict it because it is viable. Yeah. It's a good option. Sometimes it's the life-saving option.
I agree completely. And like on some maps it's gonna be a thing, some maps it's not, right? So say you're doing like opposites collide, like theoretically, right? Who cares if ghosting is allowed, right? But say you're doing Skyrolls, Blackout, Hordy Ouroboros, right? Well, yeah, like the normal team probably isn't gonna want ghost capping. But like that's an individual rep thing, you know? Where they need to figure that out.
It should be one of those rules that's not mandatory, like how Necro is now. Necro, you can allow it if you want, you can ban it if you want. Should continue to be like that with ninja capping.
What next?
All right.
Yeah, I'm here if you have any questions about the spreadsheet, but I know no one cares.
More unfortunate.
Yeah, although I do have one exciting bit of news. Our new full reps are able to pick colors now. So.
Yay.
Wow.
And for those of you who are reps that are watching, use those colors, please, on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, do. I'll yell at you if you don't. That's my job.
She yelled at me. Can confirm.
No, that is not winner. That's Hana. We have a question from Bedino. If someone wants to read that, I'm not gonna read that.
Is it the one he posted earlier?
It's one he just posted.
Okay, well I said I already answered. I already said yes.
Yes?
Oh, but I will say, Ash, what do you mean by we use colors now? So, we color code, the good people among us, the good reps among us, the good refs among us, we color code cells on the CTF spreadsheet. Color code for practice, color code for official matches in your reps colors, and color code if you cancel or postpone a match, but that's not as big of a problem now as it used to be. This helps when we go back and look at the spreadsheet history and the edit history. This helps me know, am I missing a match? Did I not record it? And furthermore, then when you look at the spreadsheet, you know if something is a practice, you know who's reffing what, when people are going to be around. It's nice and important, and it makes it look clean and organized. So, please color code.
Yeah, organization is one of the biggest things, especially with the spreadsheet and teams, just making sure everything's... Yeah. Oh no, new refs, Ash, because we have James and Nin now joining us as full refs, so yeah. But reps, if you confirm that someone can ref your match, put their ref colors on your slot on the sheet. Yeah. Hi, any other questions? Need my keyboard? My keyboard should be relatively quiet. My mic sounds very low.
You're fine.
I don't know.
Well, actually, I'm not listening to the stream. I'm listening to you in Discord, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not on the stream. I can't.
Raging had a question. Where is it?
Oh wait, no, Raging. I had not seen the new movie. Very excited. Dedicate some time to that later. I don't know if he's still here.
Minimum requirement of gameplay to play in competitive matches? Are you talking players or teams? Because we currently have rules that to remain as an official team, you have to play in a match. I think it's once every 2 months, right?
Something along that, but we have not really enforced that for
I have,
certain teams.
Yeah, I've not historically been enforcing and counting which reps are inactive. I can do that going forward, but it seems sort of unhealthy for our current team scene, just because we've become inactive from what we used to be. I do think that the forced disband after 2 months of not having matches is still good, but it's not something that I go out of my way to enforce.
We have a question. What do you guys think of different limitations on classes and matches for stalemates? So I guess like if there's a stalemate, the different limitations would be enforced. There used to be some limitations like back when 3 medic was allowed in like 12v12s, it would be that you could only have like 2 medics past mid or 2 medics on offense. And that was like extremely hard to enforce. So I think something like, I don't know, what do you guys think of like specific rules being enforced for stalemates?
I don't know.
It would really depend on what these rules are, because I mean, some of them.
Yeah. I can't really think of any rule that I would like.
Yeah. Feel free to throw an example in the Twitch chat, and then we can look at that one individually, maybe. Miscellaneous, what is your opinion on having people as inactive members in a team roster? I'm pretty biased as that, because Annie has like 12 seasonal members. So if someone else wants to take that. Well, you're on Annie too, but...
No, but this was something a long time ago. I used to actually keep track of rosters. That's impractical. I did that just because I wanted to, not because I thought that it would be a good resource. But I personally think as long as you enforce a time limit on so if you switch to seasonal member to your main roster, as long as you still have to follow the 24-hour rule of they can't play until they've been on the team for 24 hours, I think it's fine. Because in that regard, it's not really, it doesn't change anything. It's not bypassing the limit. So as long as that's enforced, it doesn't bother me. The only thing that could possibly be problematic would be that taking a seasonal member could be considered poaching, but that's not really something that we have a problem with in the team scene. Or at least it's not something that we would punish in any regard.
I mean, the two teams that really have a lot of seasonal members are Annie and CT, right?
Yeah.
But those teams, like, a lot of those players are just inactive. Like, you can bring up, like, maybe they'll be on, but I don't think those players would be on another team anyway,
yeah,
right?
I would never switch teams. I don't.
So, like, you run into that situation where, like, yeah, like, one team might have, like, 40 players, right? But 15 of them wouldn't play the game or be on another team. Like, maybe they come in, one match, like, every, like, couple months, but I don't think something like that would, boost, Can I make my Twitch avatar a dog face selfie? No thank you.
Unlucky.
Okay, so... you go?
I think Ash asked above, what are we planning on anything to help revitalize the team scene?
Just make all teams TC, then we're good.
I mean, meta switch with these elf changes and all these other changes that are coming in it, making the entire team scene not PvP based?
Yeah, the issue with the entire team scene right now is that a lot of the teams right now are not the same skill level, but very similar and very well above the casual player's skill and the new player. So even if we were to get a massive influx of new players interested in the competitive scene, but they were only able to make 1 or 2 teams, they'd be stuck fighting either each other or these really well-developed teams that have been playing for a while.
Well, and you have a lot of teams now recruiting off of like Badline and like Kit PvP and stuff more than CTF as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do think like the key to that is a meta shift, which is really what we're aiming for, I think. Because like we want PvP. If you're a really good PvPer, we want you to have like a place in a match, right? But we don't want we don't want the best team to just be really good like PvPers, right? We want other individual skills to matter.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunately the direction that CTF has taken with like the pyro change, making pyro more of a PvP class. I mean, our ideas for buffing it are just to make it more viable in PvP.
But the changes to like elf, mage, stuff like that, like these like other classes that aren't like that are getting buffed up to the level of some of those, though, are definitely gonna switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. So.
Does a meta shift mean we're actually going to buff Necro? There are plans for possible Necro changes and buffs we talked about earlier if you want to go back in the VOD once this is over. But they're not completely together yet.
Did we talk about it or we just mentioned that we had...
We just mentioned it. I don't think we should talk about it since we're not like sure
Since
on
we're
it
not
yet.
sure, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it is something you can keep an eye out for.
Although I am really proud of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch on Snowleak's question.
Okay, go for it.
So he asks, do you think the reason that there are little teams or few teams is that there are not enough people that take enough effort to properly lead a team? I think there's definitely a combination of factors that lead to disbands and specifically very quick cycles of becoming official and disbanding. I think one of these reasons is definitely poor organizational skills and not knowing what they're really doing when they lead a team or when they represent a team. Specifically, reps that might not be actively going out and getting matches and pushing for their team. But I think that what really keeps a team from disbanding for a longer period of time is the atmosphere that you have within your team and keeping the people together rather than just trying to keep the team together. And that's a very tricky thing to nail down, and it's not something that every group of people can do. If you're forming your team just for the team scene, and then maybe you start losing matches, people start getting frustrated, and the team disbands, or you become inactive, you stop getting matches, the team will disband. But if you form as a group of people that enjoy playing together, shout out to TC, less than just winning matches, then I think there's a higher chance that you'll stick together. So I think it's just a culture thing.
Oh, you completely?
I can agree with that.
It's like how Water Taste was. We were terrible at matches, and we didn't play many. But when the times we weren't playing CTF, we were still all together playing. That's why we lasted so long.
I think Annie's an interesting example of that. We had a 1.5-year span where we won like 3 CTF matches, and none of us enjoyed playing the game, right?
Yeah.
But we still were in calls for hours a day because it was like more than just like CTF and matches.
Yeah, speaking of matches, there was a question asked above. What are the prizes for the tournament?
I've been working on this. So last tournament, like people got like ranks and stuff on the winning team. I want you to do that again, short duration ranks, because Putty won't let us give away anything too crazy. And I'm working with Noax on this, and I'll give you a little teaser. We want to get something special for the forums, for anyone that played for the team that won the tournament. A little recognition thing with some custom art. That's all I'll say, but something to kind of, when someone clicks on your profile, it's like, what's that? Let me hover over it. Oh, winner of CTF Team 2018 tournament. I don't know. Something cool. Like nothing crazy, but like that in a rank for a little bit.
We're finally taking something from Osu.
When I proposed the idea to Putty, I took a picture of the
My life is complete.
There you go. That's your peak. You're peaking right now.
Yeah, I peaked.
Okay, sorry, I had to mute for a second. But when we got that for the first CTF tournament, because I had to convince Putty to do it. But yeah, when I originally had the idea, I looked at like the banners on Osu, and I was like, wow, these are, we should do something like this. But yeah. Okay.
Incredible.
For example, my question about limitation stalemates. What if the pyro limit on a stalemate increased to 2 for a 10v10 match? I feel like loads of people in skills. Okay, so the problem with that I see is when that stalemate ends, when do you have to switch off of pyro? So if I'm in the enemy flag room as pyro and I steal, does that mean my defensive pyro has to go back to something else? Or like, I feel like there's a ton of like minor things that could be super hard to see from ref perspective with like changing rules like that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
it's too many awkward.
It'd be too many too many small things we'd have to enforce, and it'd be hard to actually like enforce the or it's hard to make a limit on, like you said, when does a pyro switch back? Like you'd have to make a really specific answer to that question, but then people might argue that it's situational.
Yeah. Which again, whenever you mention the word situational, it just becomes increasingly hard to ref, and especially with not too many refs showing up to matches. We have a question here. When are we gonna bring back Wool?
I have to go back. I have to go now.
Okay, so we'll answer a few more, then me and Zombie, and then see you, Kev.
Yeah, we'll take a couple more.
Yeah. Hi, peace. Actually, I brought up an idea of possibly having customizable banners or like wool textures as a cosmetic that you could get and go on the website and design yourself. So that's something that might get worked on at some point. If you want a realistic answer to bring back wool. But, yeah. Can Necro be allowed to place mobs in your flag room again? I think Zombie and I are just focusing on, like, fixing like, the clunkiness of Necro rather than stuff like that. We want to make the class just, like... Because right now, making mobs able to go to flag posts, right, they're already in a track there. Being able to place them there won't really do much because of just how bad the mobs are.
Yeah, although, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to allow it. I don't know how much you would benefit from it other than just cluttering the flag room and making it harder for pyros to defend.
I think that's something we do the thing we're thinking about, right? And then if it's still weak, then we do that.
If it's still weak, we can add that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wool is a
we
payable.
We can always
cousin.
switch things around.
Yeah, okay. Similar question and the rules on still 2 ninjas on defense, but we need more ninjas still 2 ninjas recovering in one supporting flag area. Yeah, it's just with that, I just really do think that, like, as a ref, and this isn't me saying like, oh, like reffing is a crazy hard job. Like, it's honestly not like too crazy hard, but like having to watch like every minute thing, like TPing around, like when does the player switch off. It's gonna make the game, like, especially like now that we're like doing MSW stuff and like streaming and like spectating, it's gonna make it worse to watch, and it's gonna make it way harder on the ref, and teams are gonna have all these like minor rule breaks because they're not used to playing with it. So I think it's something that, I mean, teams can do it if they want, right? Definitely, like, teams are allowed to do their own rules. They can put whatever they want on the thread, and we have to try our best to enforce it. But I don't think it's something that I see becoming standard. Should remove class limits because no one would play 4 pyros in the first place. Class limits are there mostly because classes are annoying, which I don't agree with, but I don't know, people like them.
Why do people... Do you remember... I don't understand why there's a limit on 1 pyro with frenzy versus back when there was 2 insta-kill pyros.
2 pyro, 2 assassin, 2 archer, triple medic.
Yeah, I don't understand what the whole shift is.
I think the difference then, though, is like offense was double medic, double chemist, ninja. So
true.
It's a little bit different, and ninja also like destroyed pyro assassin. Then like pyro didn't have a chance. I don't know. It's just people. What?
Honestly, I thought matches were more fun when you had to watch for 2 pyros instead of 1, because now it's really predictable. You go ninja, kill the pyro, soldier goes in, steals.
Yeah. Version says we can change matches rules. Okay, so you as a rep, if you are scheduling a match with another rep and it's not a tournament match, so like tournament matches, like the rules are already predetermined, right? But if you're scheduling a normal official or unofficial, you guys can agree to whatever rule you want to, as long as it's not against MR, which Ash just said. Yeah, you can do any rule you want as long as you and the other rep agree. So you can say, I don't know, you can say every map is 10 minutes, you have to dwarf cap, and you're only allowed to play Necro on defense. And we have to try to enforce that.
It sounds like a great match.
Except you can't do dwarf because it's against MMR. But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, as long as you and the other rep agree.
Because is there anything in MMR that limits classes?
Just engineer and dwarf band, but that's it.
But not restricting. I mean limiting, like only 1 pyro.
No, not at all.
See, so you could essentially have a 4 pyro game if you wanted.
Yeah.
But nobody will do that because.
I remember one of the last matches that I played and was very memorable was...
Is that why you remembered it?
Oh, it was a long time ago, too, because Laughing was on the team. This was the one where we were on Blackout and one of our caps had to be a mage cap.
Okay, yeah.
That's amazing.
And the flag got passed through the little chain link wall on the bottom. And that came up and people talked about whether or not that was considered glitching.
Oh, you're Laughing going chemist then passing to a mage through there?
Yes.
Yeah. The inventor of the bar pass, Laughing Team 101. Okay, so I think let's take like 2 or 3 more questions here.
Alright.
I'll end up. Let's see. So, what do you have? Who are the top players in each class, in your opinion? I'll give a couple.
I mean, yeah, we could do that.
I mean, why don't you do like 2 or 3 classes each? Like, I'll take,
Sure.
I don't know. I'll take like Archer. I'll pick 3 random. So I'll take like Archer, Heavy, Ninja. So Archer, I think Brandino's the best player. Just because he consistently puts up numbers that no other Archer does in terms of kills. Heavy.
Heavy's really
anyone that started playing the game on another server.
Yeah, basically.
Ninja, best ninja. Yeah. Best ninja is Sam, in my opinion.
there's a whole bunch of ninjas that are really good.
Yeah, and the good thing to see with ninjas, like, some of them are combo ninjas, some of them are, like, 4-on-4 ninjas. So there's even, like, mini metas within, like, ninja players. Some, like, rely on invis, some rely on, like, ping to combo.
Like, let's see, I'll do elf. Oh, elf.
That's a hard one, actually.
Elf is really hard because there's a few really good people, but the one person that really stands out to me at the moment is 915.
Yeah, he's the only one that can cap matches.
He's the, like, he's told me there will be times he's playing and he's watching the he's got like the stream in the background, and he'll hear the people in the stream go, 915 has the flag. Wait, he's elf? Really? It's just every time he steals is as an elf, people are just like, really? So I'd say him because he can actually pull up, like, actually use elf in a match.
Yeah. I got 2 more.
Ooh. I don't know. Assassin's another hard one because there's a bunch of people who are good at it and a bunch of people who are just annoying at it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I mean, Assassin, I don't know, like, of the big group of people I'm thinking right now, Chick D is really good.
Okay.
He's always pulled out a good performance.
Played very well today.
Yeah. I didn't see it. Was he really good today?
He did play very well in Assassin today in the match, yes.
I mean, Nlog has times where she's really good. Back on TC, Pega Tree was amazing. So was Chris. Chris was good.
So Zombie thinks the entire community is the best assassin.
I mean, because I play mage, I get murdered by everyone. So.
Right. So what's your last class? Then.
Oh. I'm gonna have to go soldier actually.
Okay.
I was thinking mage, but then
yeah,
obviously I would go. Yeah, I know I'm the greatest mage, even though I'm really bad. But soldier, I don't know. One of the top soldiers right now would have to be Swit.
I think Swit and Ark have something like going, like synergy-wise that like no other 2 soldiers have.
Who?
Swit and Arctic on TC together have like a synergy that no one else does. Yeah.
Originally, it was Alice and Ark.
Yeah, Zhang and yeah.
Zhang, those 2 were impossible.
Well, it's like those 3, I guess. You know, still. Like,
yeah, those 3. Like, hey, speaking of Swit, she's actually got the flag.
There you go. Okay, one last question. Let's see. Well, this is a good one to end on. Do you think these Q&As will be more consistent? So, as Boss and I said before, I think it's a good idea if we do these like after or before like any major events. So, like for example, when the tournament ends, we'll do another one checking in with you guys, seeing what you guys want to happen in the game. By that time, hopefully, elf changes and that kind of stuff will be very close, and then we'll be talking about what we want to look at for the game going forward. And again, anytime we have like major stuff planned, like a rework, we'll probably do a Q&A. Like this is a really big one. This is our first one, but yeah, I do think
it'll probably should be shorter than this, but
yeah,
I would hope we'd do these in the future.
Yeah, I mean this is like a mini committee meeting, like with you guys able to be here and like ask questions and stuff. And there were a lot of really good questions, so yeah. That being said, any last words for those of you in the call before we do go offline?
No, I don't think so.
Hana?
I feel like you know what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. TC's still the best team. That's it.
In spirit.
In spirit, yes.
Yes,
spirit.
But spirit's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Yep, that's it for me.
But yeah, that being said, thank you guys for watching. We will be looking to do more of these in the future, and we will announce them. Feel free to drop a follow here, drop a follow on the MSW channel, go watch the tournament matches. Today's tournament match was pretty good, and the one yesterday was a real nail biter. I won't spoil the ending, but it was extremely close. You should definitely go check it out. But yeah, that all being said, thank you guys for watching, and if no one else has anything, I'm gonna end the stream here. Bye.
Nope. Bye.
All right. See you guys next time. Peace.
Yeah.